This is Pod Populi,
podcast for the people.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Femme Force Podcast. My name is Rachel Pascan, and I am your host. And today I'm so excited that I am joined by Sharon Bushy, who is going to highlight her entrepreneur journey. She helps brick and mortar businesses transition to the digital age and helps scale women-owned businesses, which I think is such an amazing thing. And we're in the very big focus on women-owned business, Black-owned businesses. So any way that we can get tips and tricks and learn about how to do that, especially from a female leader who's building these businesses in different settings, I think is going to be great for all of the listeners. So Sharon, thank you so much for being on the podcast. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me here, Rachel. I'm super excited.
So Sharon, can you just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and a little bit about your background and like your journey of where like you're at now?
100%. So I am a marketing and business strategist. I have been working in the ecosystem supporting startup businesses and developing businesses for a little over 10 years now. I actually started my journey fresh out of high school. I created an agency with a counterpart, and we worked with brick and mortar stores across the world to help them transition from their brick and mortar into the digital sphere. So Rachel, we're really talking about people that are very new to the tech system, that did not have a foundation and a brand presence, and taking that conversation, saying, how do we transition it back to the digital sphere? We worked with CPG brands, with designers, construction, medical, everything you could think of for about 3.5 years. After 3.5 years, my partner and I parted ways with our business, and I continued working independently. And my goal was really to understand throughout this journey is, how do we take scaling businesses with a minimum budget and leverage an authentic brand story to help drive community growth and retention? My focus across the board was really anybody that had a mission, but I was very, very passionate about working with women-owned businesses.
Yeah.
And the reason why I love working and I loved working with women-owned businesses is because at the time that I was working with them, I saw that a very consistent disadvantage about how women were showcased in the marketplace, these stereotypes around women-owned businesses, as well as the lack of understanding of what it's like for a woman who manages a household, who manages her family's life, to also maintain a professional front. So my goal was to work with people who did not have endless hours in the day to help drive that growth. I did that for a few years, working with independent designers like Lee and Rookman until COVID. COVID happened. I lost all my clients. And in the same exact moment, like so many people, right? Product-based businesses.
It's so hard.
It was very hard, but I like to say with every obstacle, with every struggle, there's a new opportunity. And so I was able to take advantage of that time to shift my focus. I ended up working during COVID, in the beginning of COVID, with business owners on their personal brand, helping female business owners develop their personal story and narrative outside of what their company is, while simultaneously working on my MBA in order to understand the marketing to business sequence that can help drive a more strategic decision-making process for people, again, that don't have endless hours in the day, that do not have endless budget, but are still looking to build their vision. From there, I evolved and worked very briefly in a corporate company called Wella Company. From there, I had the pleasure again of working with fierce female leaders within the business, and then parted ways because corporate is not my I'll call it not my bread and butter. I continue to work independently with businesses, really evolving their marketing goals, their business goals, and supporting very, very specific businesses and evolving and developing their capital. So my focus from the get-go, Rachel, has been understanding how to help businesses scale on minimal budget, and particularly focusing on businesses that are women-owned because of the obstacles that I've seen women endure during the time that they evolve their business.
I mean, number one, I think you're just doing phenomenal work and you understand the landscape. I mean, women are the number, we buy the things. We like to make the things. We're doing all the things. Like, women are the centerfold. You said your entrepreneurial journey started right out of high school. What inspired you at such a young age to be like, I want to do my own thing? I don't want to be in the corporate world.
honestly, I'm very, very lucky, and I grew up with a entrepreneurial community. My both of my parents, when they came to America, they started their own business. They started a clothing line, and from there, an operational store line. They transitioned into different types of roles over the years, but they were always very passionate about understanding what you should understand what you want to do. You should understand what you are passionate about, and you should also understand that you have the capacity to create that vision and that journey for yourself. Something that's very unique with the United States is that we really have an opportunity here in this country to create our own
Yeah.
path for success. It's not easy. There are
No.
ample obstacles. I mean, I'll tell you, Rachel, even today when I speak to business owners, I was speaking to people that are rolling in sometimes 5, 6 figures a month with their business, but they still have to maintain a full-time job. It's not black and white, but there is an opportunity here to pave a different pathway that you really can't find in a lot of countries around the world. So my parents were always big advocates. My brother is an entrepreneur, so it felt very natural to embark on that journey of really understanding, okay, what do I want to do? What am
Yeah.
I trying to impact in this world? And it just fell very organically into marketing. Being raised first generation American, Rachel, it is always fascinating to me to understand how a single statement, a visual, a short video can be interpreted in so many different ways. Every single family member had a different perspective, and having that upbringing and understanding how intercultural communication impacts interpretation of information really fascinated me. It was a newfound challenge, right?
Yeah. That's amazing. And I mean, the fact that you had mentors from such an early age, it just says that the more that women get to see what other women are doing, it opens the doors for them, for little girls to be like, well, she's doing it. So that's obviously an option for me. It was never an option for me.
A hundred
Like, that's
percent.
amazing. And I think that's so cool. When you're, I mean, you're young at this point and you're like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. What are some of the challenges that you face, like in those really early days?
Ooh,
I
let's
know.
start with the fact that when I started this entrepreneurial journey and exploring the entrepreneurial journey, I was 18 years old and I looked like I was 12. And so to sit in a room with business owners, with people that are very far down the path of success, both men and women, and to present myself as a credible counterpart was a little bit difficult because at the time I didn't know who I was well enough to show that I'm the right person for the job. And what
Yeah.
I mean is and this is literally for any of your listeners and anybody who's interested in becoming an entrepreneur, the people around you will perceive you the way that you allow them to perceive
Yeah.
you. If you show up as someone who is confident in their vision and the mission and their journey, then you will be able to break down so many doors and meet incredible individuals and join projects that you didn't even think were possible for yourself. But if you approach a meeting, a phone call, a networking event thinking I'm new, I'm inexperienced, I'm unconfident in myself, that's exactly how you're going to be
Yeah.
interpreted as someone who's new and experienced, unconfident. At 18 years old, Rachel, I had no idea who I was. I didn't really understand quite the world of marketing. I was just starting my journey. So having that, I would say having the confidence and
Yeah.
therefore that kind of first impression type of credibility was difficult. Um, for that was number one. Number two is
Yeah.
as really just having the consistent pushback and learning how to build that thick skin. Building a business is not easy. Scaling a business is not easy. Every single person comes through challenges where either they're not confident in themselves or the world is not confident in them. And I didn't understand that when I first started what rejection would look like, having people hang up the phone, people tell me I'm too young, um, working with men, having men say very inappropriate things to
Yeah.
me as a young woman, and learning how to take those experiences, separate them from my life, from who I am, and recognize that these obstacles are an opportunity for growth. Because if I can sit in a room and a individual could tell me that I am a lot of things I just won't repeat on your podcast because it's just so
Yeah.
inappropriate, but vulgar statements. And I could look them dead in the face and say, thank you so much for sharing. Can we get back to why we're here? That is a level of personal growth that takes time, but it's something that I didn't understand when I first started. So it
It's a
was really,
skill
it's a
that you shouldn't
skill.
have to have also, but
No, we
it's good.
shouldn't. Basic human kindness, right? That is
Yeah.
something that I aspire and hope to see evolve in many professionals environments. And I would say I see it a lot with women in corporate settings and very tense settings. And the reason why is because women, I feel like, have had to fight very, very hard to overcome a lot of stereotypes, a lot of obstacles in order to get to where they are professionally. So
Yeah.
women I've seen provide much empathy when it comes to that. But you're right. We shouldn't have to have these conversations. I shouldn't have to have someone sexualize me in a meeting. I total tangent, but oh yeah, I had an investor meeting. It was I would say about 3.5 years ago now. And this investor is an older gentleman. And his business partner is a woman, and the woman very respectful, gentleman, incredibly
Yeah.
chauvinistic. And I had to sit down in these meetings with my pitch deck and deal with, the process of having someone comment on how I look while I'm
Which
talking about
shouldn't even be
numbers,
a thing. Yeah.
which should never be a thing, which should never be a thing. But it kind of goes back to, I would say it kind of goes back to this conversation on mindset, and understanding what is that business mindset and the willingness to be uncomfortable within certain settings, because there are going to be experiences that are not pleasant, that are challenging, and be able to have an honest conversation of whether or not this is something that I am willing to endure and why. And so I'll say that's probably the third thing that was very difficult. It was going through this professional journey without understanding my why, because the process of working was very natural to me. Working hard is very easy for me. Challenging myself is something I'm comfortable doing. But when I first started my journey, I didn't know my why. What am I trying to
Yeah.
do? And I think that is it's one of the biggest tools. It's one of the most important foundations for any business owner in order for them to develop that mindset, in order for them to develop the resilience
Yeah.
to build a business. You have to understand what is it that's the driving factor for those decisions, because building a business is not easy. It's
No.
not. Some would say it's easier than being in a 9 to 5. Some would say it's harder. I'd say to each their own, but it's not easy, right? I had days where I was working
No.
13 hours.
Exactly.
But I today can do that easily because I know what I love to do. I love working with business owners. I love knowing that I can talk to visionaries and support them in creating what they want to see in the marketplace. This is what fulfills me. I know it. When I first started, I didn't understand what it was. I
The
just
why.
knew. Yeah, I didn't know my why. I just knew that this is something that I wanted to do. And I think it's important to echo to your listeners that that's okay. It takes time. It
Yeah.
takes time to really know what is your why and figuring out where you are and figuring out what you are and are not okay with. I have plenty of friends who are part-time entrepreneurs because they're not interested in scaling. Their why is to create new and exciting projects for themselves on their free time, and that's it. And that is okay. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody said in order to be an
No.
entrepreneur, you need to be making 6, 7 figures a month. Right? It could be just the process of creation. And I think we need to have more of that conversation because there's such a pressure. There's such an enormous pressure, I would say, especially on women to show up with certain figures,
Yeah.
to show, that they are the boss lady, that they can handle these numbers, that they could stand up and say they're making 6, 7 figures, and that's what success looks like. And I think we need to take a step back and say success could be opening up an Etsy shop and selling $150 worth of product a month, if that's what you want. And success can be, working internationally and going on business trips with different counterparts and standing in a room filled with men. Success is whatever you want it to be. But that process of identifying success really starts to get with that why. And I did not understand that when I started my entrepreneurial journey at all.
No, but that's so different because success truly is so different for everybody. It can be a stay-at-home mom. literally being able to drop our kids
Yes,
off on time. It can be starting a side hustle. It can be going back to school. It can be so many different, it can just be speaking in front of a room of people. It might not be your
yes.
jam. Like so many different things can be labeled as your success. And I think you're so on point there with having the why and understanding why you're doing it. And like it can be for money, it can be for fame, it can be for whatever
Whatever
drives
it
you. There's no
is.
judgment. Yeah. And I think
Yes.
that's such a good point that you have to have at least know the why to understand what you need to be
Bec
doing.
because if you don't know why, you'll lose focus and you'll give up on your company because it's not important enough to you.
Yeah.
Um, Time is scarce. And, there are different people that talk about efficiencies in operations. And you'll hear people talking about, how you could work a 4-hour work week and be making 6, 7 figures a month. And you'll see people saying how you could just make passive income. And I think the point that we need to talk about is that time is scarce and time flies by very quickly, especially when you're building something. So you need to really understand where are you willing to allocate time and
Yeah.
why. I had a client of mine that I worked with that from Friday 5 p.m. to Monday 6:30 a.m., her phone was off, her emails were off. She had an assistant to support her in case of an emergency on call, but
Yeah.
she made a very big decision. The reason why is because she scaled her business so quickly that she ended up losing sight of her relationships and she was losing sight of her partnership. And so she made that decision because she said, I'm succeeding, but I don't define it as success because I don't have my family there with me.
Yeah.
I'm not building memories. And so she made those boundaries for herself. And I think that's what it comes down to. It's understanding where you want to allocate time and how you want to build it. Because building a business, especially as a woman who's also raising her kids, going through the process of driving them to school, helping them with homework, being a partner to a partner if you have one, being maintaining relationships with family members is
Yeah.
difficult. My mom, when she, my mom is incredible. I'm biased, but my mom's incredible. And when she came to America and she worked on the first company with my father, they had a sort of operation and they decided to close the company and she had to start new.
Yeah.
English is her second language. Her third language, actually. English is her third
Mhm.
language. And she had to teach herself what she wanted to do, which was graphic design, digital design, while driving us to school, helping us with our homework, and being, by choice, being a counterpart to my father. And doing that, she was basically up and about 16 hours a day, every single day. And she did it with a smile on her face. And I remember as a child, I would ask her why, because I didn't understand what was happening. I just knew she was always tired. She was tired and she
Yeah.
was always working. And she told me, because I love what I do and I love being here with you. And I think that when you have that dedication and because you know what you're trying to do, you can do more than you realize. You can
Yeah.
accomplish so much more because you have that resilience. I mean, I've seen it from a personal front. I've seen it with plenty of professionals who bounce back from companies that are borderline bankrupt. People can achieve incredible things if they believe in what they do. If you do not believe in it, you will not have the patience to sit through hours of work to figure out solutions and strategies and client growth. It's not possible. You have to really understand why you love it.
1000%. And I mean, it's just so important, everything you've just said. So you are transitioning brick and mortar companies to digital, which is, I mean, we're at an
Yes.
age where brick and mortar sometimes is not, I don't like to make returns. Like I have to Google Maps where it is. It's a whole thing. Like we're like Amazon and you get it, within Prime within
Yes.
2 days. And it's this, we're really a digital age of everything. We have computers in our hands at this point. Like everything is done digitally. How do you transition a company like that and people who are strictly like, we have a brick and mortar into the digital platforms?
It's a very foundational process. I use it across the board, but I basically I start off with understanding what the brick and mortar, what this company is trying to achieve. Again, goals are everything.
Yeah.
Based off of the goals and financial projections, capacity, operational hours, right? I then build a project timeline on how to make that transition. And transition can be, and has been in my experience, companies that are looking to close their brick and mortar and strictly be in the digital sphere. But transitions can also be to expand their customer journey from brick and mortar to also being digital. And so by doing that, the way that you anticipate sales, the way that you anticipate client retention, it shifts because you have loyal customers that are coming into store, but you also have a new process of bringing in new customers virtually with a low commitment strategy. And by low commitment, I mean these aren't individuals like yourself. You don't have to go in physically, park the car, allocate time in your day to go into the store. You could just go onto their website. It's fully updated. But basically, I go in, I understand what a client needs. What are you looking to do and why? How does that tie into
Yeah.
your overall company goal? From there, I help build a project timeline with the internal team. If there's an internal team, then I do it independently and I showcase it to the leadership team, showing in order for us to reach Y revenue and to be in a goal where you're fully automated and processing sales and growing online, here are the steps that we need to take. Once I have that project timeline, I then start breaking down the process itself and building. So I have a team I work with. We build the website, optimize it. I have a graphic designer that I work with. We work on rebranding and reshaping the creative and communication so that it is adaptable for the online world. And then I have myself and one counterpart that I also work with to build the CRM and customer retention. Because once you have people coming in through multiple funnels, maybe they're coming in through referrals, maybe these are gift cards, you have to have systems in place in order to bring in that new client and keep them engaged. Because client retention is one of the biggest strategies to helping grow a business financially. So I end up working systematically. I have counterparts depending on the budget and the operations, or I do it independently. And then once I do that, I launch everything and I build trackers for the leadership team. I build trackers for the business owners in order for them to be able to see what was done, whether or not it's effective, and how it can change or what needs to be improved. The reason why is because marketing and business growth is abstract. Making big decisions and tracking sales is abstract, meaning just because you see numbers, front value numbers, top line numbers on revenue, it doesn't necessarily mean that your business is growing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you're successfully making that transition. In order to really transition into the digital sphere, you have to have a system in place, a system that consistently builds awareness, it consistently builds consideration, and it consistently builds those conversions and post-conversion retention. So it's a system that's constantly drawing people and giving them an incentive to do that process. One of the biggest obstacles that I've seen for companies going through this journey is really understanding the scope of what it means to go from digital, from brick and mortar to digital, because
I can imagine.
Because it's, there's, and it's not to anybody to blame anybody. It's just, if you don't have experience in this industry, you don't know. It's not a black and white process. Once you put up a website, it does not mean that you've officially evolved your system to be in the digital sphere. In the same manner that if you're an online store and you're looking to build a brick and mortar, just because you open up a store and you create ad spend that then allocates to that store, the same ad spend you've been doing for the website, it does not mean that will create that conversion. There is a different strategy each way, and there is a process of making it fluid so that one is supporting the other. It's actually interesting, Rachel. I've been reading a lot about how our sales strategies have changed for consumer packaged goods and for apparel, because there is a little bit of a push and pull between how people are shopping across the board. Direct to consumer strategies where people are selling online, very important. But we're seeing this really interesting influx, right, of people that are interested in buying products in store. And the reason why is because when you have certain products like shoes, high quality jewelry, very unique products, like when I was working with Lee and Rokeman, high-end bridal gown designers that are retailing at $11,000. It's very, very difficult for a customer to feel comfortable purchasing online. Even if you can return the product, it's a huge commitment. And we're seeing, because of that influx and because we're seeing the shift of how people are working on their day-to-day, how people are, some of them are more returning to the office. Hours are changing, the way that people are eating are changing. So the way that they're socializing is also changing. And there seems to be an interest in kind of re-engaging that in-person experience, because shopping in person is a very unique journey. And I think
Yeah,
we lost that as especially after COVID, as everything
COVID.
quickly
Yeah,
evolved. But it's I'm seeing actually a little bit of an influx where maybe it's not that these brands that I'm working with are interested in opening a store, but they are interested in selling into a chain store. And what does that look like? And how does that complement the process of building a product line and launching it online? So it's really interesting. There's a lot of fluidity happening right now.
no, and that's so interesting. And I mean, as you're talking about like brick and mortars and digital and selling products and the people that buy this, you specialize in scaling women-owned business. So I mean, you're a woman, so obviously you understand the background of what it's like to be a woman in business and to help to scale, because look at your business now. But what has it been like, really helping these women and like the unique challenges that they face for scaling this kind of business?
I would say it's kind of the psychology of what it means to be a woman in business and
Yeah.
how to communicate the messaging of a woman-owned business in a very authentic and honest manner, from a digital front, from also a personal branding front for business owners. And the reason why I say on both fronts is because we live in a generation where consumers are very diligent. They do a lot of research and they don't want to just see the product. They want to understand the team behind the product. And so building a personal brand for business owners, especially women-owned businesses, has been very important to build that gap where it's this beautiful experience that you have, this new outfit that you bought. It's not just an outfit from a great brand, it's from a woman that has a story. What's her story and why is it there? I think the thing that I've struggled with is with my business owners that I've worked with is how to build an authentic journey and also how to support women and feeling okay with feeling how they want to feel in front of the market. Meaning, if you are a woman and you want to be feminine and you want to be soft and you want to feel beautiful when you sit down in front of VC investors, how do you do that without feeling uncomfortable? Because I've seen, as I've scaled and I've seen bigger numbers in companies that are bigger, women kind
Yeah.
of struggle with, how do I show up as a professional, someone you take me seriously, but how do I do it genuinely? And we're very lucky to be living in a generation where there's more of a conversation where the way that you look and what you can put on the market can be very separate. You no longer have to be the woman in the pantsuit with little to no makeup in order to sit in a room and prove that you have a tangible business idea. You no longer have to be a young woman, or this assumption they have to be this young woman in
Yes.
order
Oh,
to
we're not
capture
allowed
that
to age
attention.
gracefully.
No. Despite the fact that there are these conversations, I still see ageism. I
Thousand
still see
percent.
I still hear the sexualized comments. I still see these very uncomfortable and disrespectful environments for women. And so it's a journey of, how do you prepare people mentally to deal with that backlash where women have been called to their face ugly, old, inexperienced, unknowledgeable, belittled, right? I've sat down in meetings where women I've worked with, their counterparts, their buy-in sales team would tell them, oh, that's cute, that's adorable. It's a type of rhetoric that I have not seen working with men, right?
Yeah,
And it's
a thousand
specifically
percent.
toward women. So it's really working with them to teach them the resilience. First of all, teach them how to connect with their personal brand. Who are you outside of this persona of a business owner? And what do you want to show? What is your personal story? And then I work with them to feel confident and comfortable, so that if you want to be feminine and soft, you can. If you want to feel more masculine and less feminine, because that's how you connect to yourself as a professional persona, do it. Absolutely. You can. How do we balance that psychology? And how do we build the self-care tools around it so that you can endure the backlash. I've had conversations that have been, and more in the forefront of building confidence than
Yeah.
building technique. Because I'll be honest with you, the business owners are total badasses. All right. If you
1,000%.
are
They're already like, I have an idea. I'm going to get out there and do it. Like,
Exactly. The fact that you're in a place that you're willing to make that decision to put yourself out there means you have such a passion and such a vision. You are a total badass. And so
yeah,
these women maybe need some support from a technical front, but that's not really the obstacle. The obstacle is helping them deconstruct the insecurities of whether or not they can do it. The onus kind of assumption that because I'm a woman, maybe I can't survive and I cannot survive in this corporate setting. I cannot survive in this financial setting. I grew up in a generation, and we live in a time where
yeah,
women are showing that they are mothers, that they struggle, that maybe they didn't come from an Ivy League school, but they're able to scale. Despite that evolution and despite that dialogue, we are still, we're still dealing with that generational anxiety. I, for myself, my grandma, that's just two generations over on my mom's
yeah,
side, grew up incredibly religious. She grew up in a community where women were supposed to get married and have kids, and that's your purpose. You should
yeah.
don't think about going to school. Don't think about evolving an independent life. Get married and have kids. And so, to go from that generational assumption and then coming into a place where right now, in Los Angeles, there is a celebration of women. Don't rush. Don't just rush to get married and have kids. Do what you love. If that's what you want to do, that's great. If you want to build a business, that is equally as important. If you want to be a public speaker, that is equally as important. Don't belittle that just because you've been told that you're supposed to look a certain way, be a certain way, act a certain way. You can have both, and you can
I
have
just
them
think
on your
that,
own schedule. Sorry.
yeah, you're totally fine. I just think that, like, we're told that to be our authentic selves, be your authentic self on social media. That's how you get a following. And then that's how, you get business by like putting yourself out there and being authentic. But then at the same time, you have this imposter syndrome that no matter how many accomplishments you have, no matter how professional you are, no matter all the things that you're doing, it is literally still in the back of your mind, this little voice, especially
Yeah.
as a woman, that's just like, but should you be doing this? Can you do
Mm-hmm.
this? There's definitely someone else that's more qualified than you. Like, and we just look, I mean, you look when you apply to jobs, the resumes, like we look and we're like, oh, well, I only have 5 years of experience and it says 7 to 10. A man be like, I only have two. Cool, perfect for this role. And they still apply. And it's
Yeah.
insane that we're still at this stage
You,
in 2024, almost 2025.
I actually think there's like a lot of research. I remember reading this somewhere, what you just mentioned, that women are less inclined to apply because of the fact that they don't hit the exact requirements, and men will apply if they hit, I think it's a minimum of 45% of the requirements. They're going
Right.
to
It's
apply.
nothing. Yeah.
Um, this is the hard truth, right? Because I've been trying to figure, I for the very short journey that I've had and hopefully a long journey to continue, I've tried to figure out entrepreneurship and what it means to manage imposter syndrome. I've tried
Yeah.
to coach my counterparts as I work with them on how to manage their imposter syndrome. And I think I'm at a place right now. I'm not saying I have the answers. I think we'll always have imposter syndrome. We
Yeah.
will always have imposter syndrome because there will always be a voice saying maybe you can't. And I think it's our diligence culturally, socially, and for ourselves to say, but maybe you also can, right? The glass
Yeah.
half full, the glass half empty. There is a good chance. There's a chance the business is going to fail. Most of the people that I've worked with, the ones that start scaling their business, it wasn't their first business, it was their fourth or fifth business that started to show results.
Yeah.
And so it's possible because it's difficult. It is difficult to see those results, but you have an equal possibility of succeeding as failing. And so it's your personal choice as an individual when you wake up in the day to make a decision of focusing on whether or not you can't or whether or not you can. Um, there is someone sent this video to me recently. There's a military leader. You could see he has a lot of TED Talks. His name is Jocko, and he talks about leadership. Um, and I think that he speaks to the fact that we make a choice in terms of, oh no, not him. He did something else, but Dr. Newman. Dr. Newman is He's a neurologist and he has a
Yeah,
YouTube channel. Have you seen his
I've
show?
seen him. Yes, I've seen his show. It's great.
It's phenomenal. And so I was listening to one of his episodes as I was preparing for a meeting, and it said something very interesting. He said, your thoughts, I'm not quoting exactly, but basically
Yeah,
your thoughts pave your decision-making process. And so the focus of what you're thinking on will pave those decision-making process. And so in context of business, if you are thinking about your potential failure and your fear of that potential failure, your anxiety around that potential failure, then the way that you start acting, the decisions you make are based off of that pathway that you're currently building in your mindset. And on the other hand, if you're thinking about success, you're thinking about the opportunity, you're thinking about your why and the focus on the why, then your decision-making process is going to be built off of that core foundation. So I think we'll always feel imposter syndrome. Women are evolving quickly in the professional setting, and there's so much more for them to grow and establish themselves because of the fact that we're not joining on an equal playing field. So there's a lot that's happening, there's a lot that's evolving. But we have the capacity to make a decision to focus on our
yeah,
success or to focus on our fear. Because if we're going to fail, but not because we were afraid of our failure, but we're going to fail because of lack of experience, because poor decision making, then at the very least, we were paving our focus on that success. And if something falls between the cracks, it's a learning lesson. Learn from
a
your
thousand
mistakes and
percent. Yeah.
grow, right?
And
But
it's
if you
hard though to like remember that.
it is. I have a board behind my computer, and it has my why. It has my why, my quarterly goals, and I call them my ambitious dreams of the week, which is I challenge myself once a week to do something
I
that
love that.
pulls me out of my comfort zone. And every single week I go through it. And every single morning I look at it because I know for myself I need those reminders. Because if I'm
Yeah,
working a 12-hour day and I am tired and I haven't seen my partner and I haven't had a chance to talk to my family, it will affect me, right? It will
yes.
exhaust my mind. But if I understand that I'm doing this for a bigger opportunity so that I could be in a better place to support my family, so that I could pave bigger opportunities for my counterparts, then I can go through that process with a clearer mindset because I know why I'm doing it, right? And
Yeah.
that's worked for me. Having that reminder in front of me has helped me. I recommend it to everybody because I think that even if we know in the back of our mind, we can easily forget. We can
No, and
easily
that a
forget.
thousand percent. And like having those reminders and surrounding yourself with the people that remind you, I think that's so important and having that
Yes.
like
Yes.
support, especially as a woman.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I've had to sit down and have those conversations with individuals where I won't name names because obviously that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
So I've worked with business owners where their team is not supportive, and I've had
Yeah.
to build boundaries with the people that I work with, saying if I'm working with you on building a go-to-market, individual A, B, and C, who are not even in this scope, who have nothing to do with it, should not be
Yeah.
involved. Those individuals are negative. They don't support the process of building the strategy and structure. It's a waste of time. So I've had to create those steps. I've seen honestly business owners that I've worked with had to create boundaries with their counterparts, especially women, because they deal with so much negativity. They deal with
Yeah.
so much
So
negativity.
much all the time from every angle.
And sometimes that negativity is not with malice. Sometimes it's good intention. Sometimes it's, your best friend telling you, hey, I've been getting messages from you at 5:30 in the morning and at 12 a.m. Maybe this isn't for you. Maybe you're working too many hours. And you know what? It is with good intention, but I
Yeah.
think you have to be able to put those boundaries up and make a decision. Again, because starting a business is difficult. You're going to have 12-hour days. You are going to have them. And the people in your life that care about you, right? And maybe you look at that as a hint of like, okay, am I taking care of myself and taking care of my body? Am I
Yeah.
eating? Am I engaging with my counterparts? But also create a boundary because they don't know. They are not in your shoes. They don't have your why. And so you cannot lean on those thoughts to make your decisions. take care of your health, take care of your wellness, but understand that there are people around you that might not understand. And it could feel negative, right? It's doubt. And doubt does not support the business process. Whether or not it's with good intent, doubt will make you question yourself. So definitely who you surround yourself with and how you surround yourself with those with those like-minded individuals is critical.
I think you
LinkedIn,
pissed on
yeah,
it. Yeah. Like
yeah.
just not having that ability to know that something's going to drop. I love that saying where people are like, you have all those spinning plates, and each
Yes.
spinning plate on the stick is a different activity, or it's your different job or your different function, whatever. At some point, one of those plates are going to drop. They are.
Yes.
Like
Yeah.
it's gravity. It's how it works. It's physics. And like you have to be okay when something drops and like know how to bounce back and like have that support group around you. Like we're all
Absolutely.
doing so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Which is why I say as a professional, you need to know what your absolute musts are for yourself and for your wellness before you start thinking about your business. You need to know that if
Yes.
your priority, which has to be your health and your top relationships that you are preserving, maybe it's your family, maybe it's your partner, maybe it's your parents, whatever it is, understand that and then understand what time is allocated to you. And then on the other hand, as you're building a business, because you're balancing so many plates, right? Have the systems in place for yourself or learn how to build the systems in place for yourself so that if one plate falls, it won't tumble into three other plates.
Yeah.
And the reason why I say that is because starting a business is difficult, but it's possible. And scaling a business is difficult, but it's possible. But bouncing back from a scaling business that doesn't have a strong structure and foundation is even more difficult because you are exhausted scaling up this business and something pushes you back down the mountain and now you have to get back up again as you're exhausted. Make sure that you have the team or the system in place so that even if a plate falls because you had a personal emergency, God forbid, or because
Yeah.
you needed a break, you
Life
needed a
happens.
vacation, life happens, you have whatever you need in place so that even as you're on that break, you're not letting go of the foundation of the business that you worked so hard to build. But yeah, no, things will fall. Plates will
1,000%.
fall,
Hmm.
stress will happen, newfound issues will bubble up that you didn't even know were possible. And so having that structure is important. And that's something that's outside of mindset. And that's something that takes time, right? And
Yeah.
that goes into another point as a business owner. You have to have the patience to build.
It's a big one.
It is a big one. And I I hate saying it because I don't have the patience inherently. I'm the type of person that likes to run.
Yep.
Um, I like to have busy days. But I'm saying this not just from research and also from working with other people, but from myself. When I scaled my business before COVID, I I didn't have patience and I was running and I was rushing. And what happened was I was growing, but I didn't have the foundation behind me to what would happen. As many people didn't,
A
where if
thousand
there's a
percent. None of us knew what was going to about to happen.
what a lockdown would look like, but I didn't give myself the time to balance my personal priorities with my business. And so I was not taking care of my health. And
Yeah.
that was affecting my capacity to further grow. You need to be able to balance the things that are your foundation because if you don't, even if you start scaling, you're going to crash. Even if you start spinning three more plates, two of them are now going to fall because you don't have that right process. And that's a question of time and consistency.
Thousand
So
percent.
important. Yeah.
It's so important. I mean, I think you've hit on so many amazing points and things for the listeners to take away from this, not just about scaling your business or going to the digital age, but just about being a woman in business and
Yeah.
being a woman in general. Like life is hard. So I appreciate everything that you have talked about today, and I've learned so much. I do have one final question for you.
Yes.
If you had to give one piece of advice to your 16-year-old self, what would that be?
Ooh. One piece of advice to my 16-year-old self. Um, I would I would probably say it the failure that I would say my advice is be willing to fail today in order to succeed tomorrow. Because as a young adult, and as many young adults, I was afraid of failing because I thought that
Yeah.
one failure meant that I wasn't capable of succeeding. And fast forward to today with a little bit over 10 years of working independently with businesses, I learned that you need to fail in order to succeed. And so if anything, welcome the possibility of failing, because that also means you're reaching new territories. Welcome the possibility of making mistakes, because that also means you're actually growing. And that I wish I knew when I was 16. Definitely wish.
I love
Yeah.
that. And I think it can be applied now though. Like for day to day,
100%.
like you're gonna fail. Like you got to keep
100%.
going. But like to
And
know that at a young age, how important.
yeah, absolutely. Failure is good. For anybody that's listening, failure is good if you're willing to learn from it. Making the same,
1,000%.
failing multiple times with the same issue, that begs the question of what are you doing and what are you avoiding? Because that's usually where I see people repeating mistakes, right?
Yeah.
Be willing to fail, but be willing to learn from your failures.
I love that. No, it's something that we all need to just remember day to day, especially as women in business, in life, like
Yes,
all of these
100%.
things. Well, thank you
100%.
so much for coming on the podcast, Sharon. I've learned so much. I know the listeners are going to take away so much. Can you tell them where they can find you on socials and websites and all of that? Help yourself here a
Absolutely.
little.
I am always on LinkedIn. I love myself, my LinkedIn. And my name is Sharon Bushy, so you could find me there online. I also have my website, the Business Building Blocks, where you could reach out to me, to hop on a discovery call and just chat. I'm here to speak to you, to learn about you, and to talk to you about your business, even if you're not ready to build your business. I'm always excited to talk to visionaries and to people that have ideas but maybe don't know who to talk to or where to bounce those ideas off of.
Yeah.
So you're free to reach out to me on LinkedIn or on my website.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And thank you everybody for listening in, and tune in next week. But thank you again, Sharon. I think this is such an amazing discussion and they're going to get so
Thank
much
you.
out of this.
Thank you for the opportunity. Thank you.
Of course.